Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. Happy Wednesday, everybody. My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. The midweek madness has begun here. As always, as you know, every single day, free show right here as part of FantasyGuru.com. Ray Flowers hosts Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You get me right in the middle, and we got a lot to talk about today. As you all know, every Wednesday, Rich Mileto, the Fantasy Bosco, is going to join me to talk some Week 9 streamers for the fantasy football season. I will have the Wednesday practice reports out. Big Wednesday here. I got the DFS NBA write-up. I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And then I also have the NFL practice reports for Wednesday too. And as you all know by now, I do a couple of passes through. I hand it in late in the afternoon, then I go back and update it once the West teams are in. And then you'll have it all. It'll all be done by the end of Wednesday night. That's how it goes here because news comes at a lot of different times, and happy to be here with everybody. Just want to give everybody also just a little point of note here is that you might hear some construction. I got a lot that I can rant about, please. This might as well just be confession or anything like that, or therapy, because I got a lot I can rant about. For some reason, as you'll probably hear from time to time, my neighbor decided to take apart his garage. I don't know why. I don't know what this guy does. He pretty much sits in his car in his driveway all day long, and I don't know what he does, and he always has little projects. Well, now this is a big project, so you can imagine doing your job when you're hearing hammering going on. But you know what we do? We turn a negative into a positive because we're going to take that hammering and we're going to figure out how to hammer down our competition when it comes to fantasy football, how to hammer down on some DFS, whether it's NFL, NBA, MLB. The World Series lives to fight another day. I didn't think it'd be that easy. It's not like the Yankees bats are slouches or anything like that. The Dodgers bats are just darn good, and kind of like what I was thinking about in the NLCS with the Mets, that you have to score at least 5 runs in order to make sure that you beat a team like the Dodgers. Yeah, now the Yankees are feeling that right now. So with that in mind here, I'll say this very quickly, and I know this has nothing to do with fantasy, but I don't really understand a few things because things that ruin sports, and sometimes the fans can also ruin sports when being at a game, talking about getting drunk and fighting in a crowd. And then what we saw last night here, where you got a fan trying to take the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove, the other fan, another Yankee fan, holding on to his wrist so he can't get it. I mean, come on. That goes too far right there. How stupid can you be? We get it. It's the World Series. You want your team to win. This isn't 1963, though, Yankee Stadium, where there are no cameras anywhere for anyone to catch anything. There are cameras everywhere. There are cameras on all of your athletes. There are dedicated cameras on your favorite athletes. So if there's a reaction, they can get that quick little 5-second TV cutaway reaction. The little 5-second slow-mo of your favorite player bumming out after they struck out, or after your team is getting clobbered. That's how they get it. So all of that with what happened last night, people are just so stupid. Streaking on the field, yeah, it's funny when we see the videos on YouTube, but it's really not that funny. It really isn't. It's weird that people have to threaten the fun of sports, the fighting in the crowd. Why? Why does it have to get to that point? Why are you getting hammered at a sporting event? It's really not that fun to get drunk at a sporting event. I've never really gotten drunk at a sporting event, and I love going to sporting events. Yeah, maybe I'm watching the game a little bit more intently because I'm obsessed with sports, but I've gone socially. It's not fun, not a fun place. It's not like you're at an outdoor venue just walking around necessarily on the confines of the stadium. It's not really that fun. So I don't understand why people do it. But that's it. I saw that last night. I just thought it was absolutely ridiculous. You can hurt an athlete like that if you ever try to pull that. Speaking of hurting, we're going to talk a little sandwich style of show because I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're looking at from an injury standpoint in the NFL. Going to go into a little NBA preview for tonight and talk about what's going on the NBA side of Fantasy Guru. And then Rich is going to join me to talk some football there, some streamer action. Stefon Diggs, it's weird. It just, you never know when you see an injury how bad it truly is. Sometimes we see players get hurt. We're like, they're done. And then they're back. They go to the locker room briefly. They come back. But I did not think that Stefon Diggs, from the injury that he suffered, tore his ACL. Just such a bummer. I had 3 shares of him and was loving life. I mean, I also have a share of Nico Collins too. And it's interesting because for having those guys, when you look at what CJ Stroud really hasn't done this year, and I know I'm kind of combining 2 stories, but I'll just say this. With Stefon Diggs out of the way until Nico Collins comes back, unless a trade is made in the next couple of days, with Stefon Diggs out, Nico Collins out, obviously this offense now turns to Tank Dell. Xavier Hutchinson as well should be involved. And someone that I'm not excited about, but he is playing a decent number of snaps. He is getting a decent number of targets. I thought this guy was going to be one of the value tight ends that maybe doesn't have that high ceiling games, but at least can average you double figures in a PPR, and that's Dalton Schultz. I mean, we're seeing a lot more of 5 and 6 target games. The competition this week, though, still with the Jets, their defense has let them down a little bit, but so is their offense. But I'm talking about from a future standpoint, unless somebody gets traded there. I did not think the Ravens were going to be trading for Diontae Johnson, because with Diontae Johnson, now you expect him to go from being the prioritized target where he was in Carolina to now really splitting hairs with not only Zay Flowers, but also Mark Andrews as well, who's gotten into the mix over the last number of weeks. So that's interesting. That's something we're going to have to watch out for, and that could open up some opportunity. It's not like I'm saying trust really guys with Bryce Young or anything like that right off the bat, but there is open opportunity in the Carolina side too, especially with more bye weeks coming up. It's funny because we didn't have bye week last week. Instead, we'll have more bye weeks later on. Rich Mileto was going nuts about it, which is why I love bringing on Rich Mileto, the fantasy Bosco, who not only does keeper cut articles for fantasy football for the site, but also does the streaming articles and is in Discord a lot. And that's something that, as well, if you're not part of the Elite Mafia, when you sign up fantasyguru.com, Discord is not just there. We're in there. I feel like half of our jobs for our analysts on the site are in Discord. And so that's why when you read the stuff on the site, it's great. And I'm someone that's constantly updating stuff on the site. But also, let's not forget that Discord, especially for some of these DFS squads and late injuries, that is where you need to go if you're not part of our Discord channels. We got a bunch of them going on and always active. And it's great to see. And that's half the battle, especially when it comes to wagering and it comes to DFS as well. So with Diggs done for the year, that's what we're looking at right now. I was looking at some numbers for CJ Stroud a little bit before, and I came across this list. I was just messing around. I don't know why. Maybe some of you out there that are big sports fans, you like ranking things. I like ranking things as well. It's always been something I've been very into. So when looking at what CJ Stroud has done this year, it's been pretty disappointing for the most part. And over the last, it's never easy losing your targets, but we're talking about how this guy has thrown for multiple touchdown passes just 3 times all year. 3 times all year. Not really getting that draft capital value that some of you who drafted him were expecting. I have him in 1 league, and that's it. And I'm sorry if I'm misquoting this, but this is why you also follow us at fantasyguru.com, because Pappy Mans, Jeff Mans, who you can hear on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio on Elite Sports Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And I believe, and Jeff, if you are watching this right now, I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but Jeff was someone that was saying, hey, CJ Stroud, is this a guy that could be necessarily a top 5 quarterback? And he really wasn't on it as much. And again, if I'm misquoting that, I apologize, but I hear what I hear. And I remember hearing that from Jeff multiple times. which is huge. And by the way, Jeff has his podcast, One Man's Opinion, that comes out every week too. A new episode should be popping off soon, as it does in the middle of the week. But it hasn't been that impressive with CJ Stroud, and I'm interested to hear what Rich thinks for the streaming option, because open opportunity is open opportunity. We don't have a crushing bye week. We've got 2 teams on bye, the Niners and the Steelers. That's it. So it's not like it's a one of destruction just yet, where we got to just go after guys that might have a little bit higher of a ceiling, but in tough matchups. So interested regarding that and Thursday night football. It seems like we've seen the Jets a lot. By the way, happy to see all of you as well. It's funny with Kyle, with what you're asking about with McMillan. Stay tuned, because I am going to talk to Rich about that whole situation. For me right now, when looking at this, man, it is probably a more on the side of McMillan, being that we know what the deal is with that. So we'll have to wait and see, because yes, that is something to be concerned about as well. And Jordan Love is a player that we're going to be watching out for. It sucks, man, because Jordan Love last year was just really good at the end of the year. You saw there are some players that just hit the ground running. But then there are players where you see the gradual improvements. And Jordan Love was one of those guys. And it just sucks that he's just been banged up all throughout this season. I mean, he's had his games, but you were hoping for more. I'm here complaining about CJ Stroud not throwing multiple touchdown passes. Well, before week 8, I mean, Jordan Love getting hurt, before that, Jordan Love was on an impressive streak of doing that. He was at least doing that. He was throwing picks, though. So it really, unfortunately, does suck in that regard. But that's why we do this. That's why we're always constantly pivoting. Someone like a Jameis Winston is out there still for you. Someone that you know is going to also throw picks, but he's going to throw for a lot of yards. He is. That's what's good about him, is that you know he is going to throw. That's what he does. And if you stream him, you just got to know you're getting that volume. You're not getting the stupid 15 pass attempts from Jared Goff. You're not getting that from Jameis Winston. This guy is going to throw. And I'm seeing a few questions about Tillman and everything like that. Here's the thing with Tillman. I mean, what we're seeing with what we're seeing, and I find myself in my lineups because I don't know why this happened. And it's not like these are 10-team leagues, but in a few of my 12-team leagues, people dropped David Njoku. And I was dealing with Jake Ferguson a little bit banged up for a bit in a bye. And I was able to kind of scoop him up and just grab him. And now, I mean, look at what these guys are doing now. I mean, you talk about Cedric Tillman IP in the chat here. Tillman, I mean, on the targets here, multiple touchdowns, but he's seeing that volume. There's not too much competition out there. And Cleveland is going to need to throw at times as well. They're going to have their games where they throw. I think he's safe. Yes, I do. Njoku, all of a sudden, we have the week of the tight end. Multiple tight end touchdowns. We had about 17. It was nuts. Complaining about earlier in the year about how there's no market for this position. And then this position just does a 17 tight end touchdown week. Absolutely crazy. There was about maybe 52 or 53 going into last week. Just very good there. David Njoku has now scored in back-to-back weeks. But more importantly than him getting into the end zone for me is seeing that he's getting that volume, 7+ targets. I like that. I like it very much. 7+ targets in 3 straight weeks. By the way, Hal saying, look, this is interesting. Getting drunk at games is fun. Anytime your fun is messing up other fun, you're out of here. You know what, though? Is it, though? Is it? It's not for me. I don't understand, because here's the other thing as well. It's not, maybe it is if you live a block away from the stadium. I had a few friends in Chicago that lived in Wrigleyville, and we'd walk to the stadium, and yeah, it was great because we were partying at one of the neighborhood bars, Sheffield's or one of those bars right before you go right outside the Captain Morgan Club. I love going to Wrigley Field. I love it. It's funny. Here's a quick story for you. So for a fantasy conference back in 2013, me and Ray Flowers went to Wrigley Field, and there was some event, a fantasy event that was happening there. During the game, there's a little, area for catering and that has chairs and tables in the center of the Ivy. It was really cool, an indoor space. And it's one time Ray and I saw one of the fantasy analysts walking outside the glass case where we were in the indoor part to collect baseballs from the middle of the Ivy. And it was one of the craziest things we ever see. Probably not allowed to do that. Probably not smart to do that. So, yes. Hal asking about McMillan. I want to feel a little bit better about McMillan. And Kate Otten has been nice for Tampa. But yes, with McMillan and Shepard, also players to watch because open targets at this point here. Seeing Armando Marcel, my boy, here in the chat. What's going on, Armando? Always good to see you. Armando's always grinding. If he's not in the gym grinding, he's grinding with all the articles as well. So everything that he does, including that recap. I mean, here's the interesting thing. And I deal with this too as someone that's covering these games and then hosting at night every Sunday night, shameless plug, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm on a show called Fantasy Football Postgame. Jeff Mans is on the pregame show on Channel 87 every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm on postgame show, 8 p.m. Eastern. So, yeah, that's something that I'm doing right now this year. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. But, yeah, it gets a little exhausting. And Armando's putting out the recaps and getting you ready. And I just think it's a fantastic article. It's just awesome. How I'm going to talk basketball in a second. But that's what you get when you go to Fantasy Guru. We're never stopping. We understand the importance of the season. We don't let up. That's why when it comes to my injury reports and practice reports, I'm constantly updating them. Even the injury report, I don't just post it and say, see you later. No, I take it very seriously. And it's not just the injuries from the offensive side, writing fantasy impact, writing about players that have good matchups that you might be able to pick up and stream. So that's also something to consider. A few other pieces of news that we had. Diontae Johnson, I talked about him. Anthony Richardson benched. I went on a rant last week on this show about how I've seen Anthony Richardson showboat more than show off his actual talents. It has been a miserable year. And you talk about some of the quarterbacks that have really not come through. And Anthony Richardson, I mean, yeah, he was hurt for a little bit, but it just, the fact that Anthony Richardson is being benched. Yeah, he was too tired, taken out of the game, right? But the fact that the guy is being benched for Joe Flacco is a joke. Anytime this guy runs for 10 to 12 yards, by the way, just shows off. Dude, stop showing off. What are you showing off about? What are you doing? You're not doing anything. You're not. You're sitting there. When it came to Anthony Richardson, when I saw this, yeah, it was interesting to see the news, but could any of us be surprised by this? I'm not. Anthony Richardson needs to get his head in the game, needs to learn how to hit his receivers a little bit more. We all know he can run. Everybody knows, but you know what? What happened last year? The guy's danger to himself if he's going to run all the time, so he's not going to do it. And he's got good weapons. And I saw that, by the way, on our rankings last week at fantasyguru.com, our rankings that Pappy Mans puts out. Josh Downs was up there. I was in a lot of Josh Downs quandaries, whether or not to start him, because this is the type of guy he could break one. So Josh Downs was up there. He's got a finger on the pulse right there. And now with Flacco coming in, liking this offense even more. How can you with Anthony Richardson? Maybe he could stop showing off, and then maybe things will get better if he focuses on the task at hand. Let's talk a little NBA, because I am just so pumped, because the first full week of the NBA season is absolutely been fun. It has been fun. Last Wednesday, but I'll say this. We've had winners already winning hundreds of dollars. One of our analysts, actually, the Marlin, Mark Hogan, winning a major contest over $50K he took down last night. Saw the analysis. I talked to Mark about it this morning. And Mark and I, by the way, on my podcast, Fensty's Basketball Diaries, we're going to do a little powwow on contest selection for DFS, not just for basketball, but for all sports and the importance, because that is one of the keys to Mark's success. And we want all of you out there. We all want to win. This is the place where winners win. And damn it, we're going to win. And when we have one of our analysts who's not one of our NBA analysts, but Mark Hogan dabbles in a ton of sports, but he gets the game. He understands how to play this game. That's half the battle right there when it comes to DFS. $50K last night. And we're not trying to sell the $1 million dream. Little victories are great as well. I see screenshots of people winning a few bucks on a cash game lineup. That's great. Free guacamole at Chipotle. Enjoy your meal. That's what it's all about. Little victories. The NBA season is tough. No excuses here. I'm going to take my L's. I'm absolutely. And I'm going to walk the plank as much as I can because that's real. I'm not someone that's just going to put check marks every time and then hide when the bets don't hit. Hide when the DFS plays don't work out. That's just not me. I'm very transparent because I love to be able to give you my process too. Part of that process when it comes to DFS NBA is looking at pace. I've said this before. Pace produces possessions. I'm going to write a lot about that in my write-up. I'm going to have one for the Monster write-up. And by the way, I apologize for this too. FanDuel with their full game slate, their full slate of 11 games versus DraftKings who want to separate the slates. It's ruining DFS, in my opinion. It should be changed. But the article that I write up today, like it was a couple of days ago, it will have FanDuel play specifically in there. It will cover both slates. It will cover the full slate on FanDuel, and it will be a little bit heavier with plays because the DraftKings strategy is completely different. I just wish we can have a uniform slate. When the slate is split, day part, night part, fine. I get it. Saturday, Sunday, go nuts. Monday through Friday, these sites need to have a uniform slate. But we're going to work through it because that's what we do. And I'm going to be writing a lot about what teams we can take advantage of because they're poor defensive teams that move at a fast rate. The other night didn't really work out with the Hawks because for the most part, they were shooting awful against a team that not many shoot awful against. Fast-paced Washington Wizards team. And here we go again. We got to take the other night and we got to look at the volume. Player can have a bad shooting night, but rather than just looking at the point total and that's it, let's look at the volume. How many shots did this guy take? How many potential rebounds and assists? That's analytic that I'm going to be working heavily on until we have enough of a sample size where I feel it's comfortable to go back to defense versus position. We were on it. Steph Curry's out. We were on it. Took Buddy Hield a little bit to get going, but at the same time, we knew it. We knew where that ceiling was. What players from a usage standpoint. This is why you read the articles, not just look at the plays, not just look at the core four. You'll learn something, I'm telling you. It's very, very important. Tyrese Maxey, Trae Young, some of those players in a very, very good position. Very good spot. And we're going to help you get there as well. Because, by the way, besides the articles, the coverage, every single Wednesday, Watch Along Wednesday, I'm sitting there in the Discord, in the DFS NBA Discord for 3 hours from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, watching these games, reacting to these games, talking about what's wrong with these teams, what these teams need to fix, how we can take advantage, how we can beat the books, previewing the late slate. It's just a fun time where we can also make it educational and learn about these slates together. So it's not just the articles and the picks, it's the process. It's us being there like the Elite Mafia should. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So with that, let's welcome in who I consider the guard dog of fantasyguru.com. We'll flip it back to football. Al, I see you there. I'll tell you this right now. Some of the players that I'm looking at when it comes to value from the NBA slate before I bring Rich in, as I just talked aimlessly about NBA, I'm actually going to be going back to looking at some of those Wizards options with Kuzma banged up. I'm going to be looking at the guys like Koulibaly, for instance. That's someone that I'm going to be looking at in a high-octane environment. Josh Giddey, another value play that I like, a nice mid-value play. I will have the rest in the write-up on the site, fantasyguru.com. Join up, sign up for the MVP plan, hoops, and hockey. Our hockey team is smashing as well. Jorge Puck's leading the way, Ryan Clifford on that. So make sure you sign up and you get in to win, because that is what it's all about here. Let's welcome in the fantasy Bosco himself, Rich Mileto. Rich, what's going on? How's everything?
It's going, Fensty. It's going. It's been a little under the weather lately, so I'm kind of struggling a little bit. I'm not quite 100%, but getting it through, getting it done.
Well, I hope you feel better, man. And you know what? You're at least, I'll say this, pumping some life into our show right here, man. So we'll make you feel better. You make us feel better here, and tell us what the hell we're going to do when it comes to streaming here as you write your keeper article, Keep and Cut, which is, by the way, man, like, I think I'll start with that article. One of my biggest weaknesses in fantasy over the years has been when to cut a player. I've often given the player the benefit of the doubt. I feel like the audience also thinks about where they drafted said player. And that also applies pressure. Well, I drafted this player in the 3rd round. Why should I drop him? I drafted Zamir White in the 7th round a few weeks ago, let's just say. I drafted Zamir White in the 7th round, and it's week number 6 or 7, and I'm still holding on. I feel like a lot of fantasy players struggle with that. At what point do you just let go? And do you not have any of those issues with worrying about whether or not you drop the player too soon?
No, I think that's a topic we do not discuss enough as far as dropping players. And I think part of the problem, but most people have, it's emotional, right? It's fear of missing out. It's fear of letting go too soon. First things first, I'd rather be too early than too late. Okay. I'm okay dropping a guy and seeing him go off on somebody else, because at that time I made the drop, it was a logical decision to make. Whether it's I needed a player, I had too many stash running backs, and I had to be honest with myself and cut from 3 to 2 and just had to pick my poison. And I'll go so far as this. I'm in too many leagues. I have a lot of overlap with players. I think the most ownership you and I talked about is like 40-50%. So it's not like it's over the board. But if a guy is struggling that I still have faith in, I will drop him in a league as a sacrifice to the fantasy gods with the hopes that the person goes off and someone else gets them. Like, I have done that on more than one occasion, and I've had people make fun of me for it, and that's fine. I play this game to have fun as well as to strut my stuff, so to speak. So if I got to make some sacrifices here and there, because I have learned karma is a thing in fantasy. Every killer team I have ever had was riddled with injuries, then fluke stuff. Never fails. But I may be all in on a Cedric Tillman. Guess what? I started dropping Tillman early this year because I was running out of patience and running out of roster spots. And look where we're at. Cedric Tillman probably needs to be rostered in every league, right? Where I have him, I have him. Where I don't, I don't. It's unfortunate, right? So from that angle, every league and every situation is different. And I have this conversation with a member today. They have very short benches. Unfortunately, with short benches, we can't stash. That's just the nature of the beast. If you're going to stash, you get your one shot at one running back to stash, and you're going to have to fill with flex options in other avenues. That's just unfortunately the way it is. If you're in a deeper league, it's a whole different ball game, in which case I may be fine rostering just a couple of flex plays that are meh, because I want to wait for some home runs that potentially could hit over the next month as we go into the playoffs. So I tell everyone, every league, every team, it's its own animal, and there is no right answer. The best answer I can give is you have to make the best choices for your roster, and that means maybe I cut somebody because they have the same buy as somebody else, and I'm not going to be able to navigate around it and keep everybody. So I've got to be honest with myself and cut my losses, and it is what it is. It's no different than playing poker. Sometimes you fold that 2-5 offsuit only to see the flop come and give you the straight. Does that mean it was a bad idea to fold? No. that the odds weren't in your favor. Yep, shit happens. It turned out the way you needed it, but would you have really stuck around and throw a bunch of money on it and chased other people out of the pot? Probably not. So you've got to be honest with yourself about the reality of the situation. But I would much rather cut too soon than hold someone too long and miss out on other opportunities.
We talk about taking shots, Rich, and this is why we talk about the strategy aspect, because right now we're so focused on plays, but there's a game plan that we still have to implore at this time, especially if we're hovering around 500 and our point total is medium. Let me ask you, though, about when it comes to stashing, because maybe not for tomorrow night to start on the fly, but with Stefon Diggs, which I have 3 shares of the guy, which really sucks, because I thought it was – when I thought it was a knee sprain. I didn't think it was
so did I.
ACL. This is why we're not doctors. But at the same time, when it comes to this Houston Texans offense now, I mean, you got Nico Collins still hurt. You got Diggs done. When it comes to stashing, Xavier Hutchinson, is he a guy that is at this point more of a stash than necessarily a stream for the matchup against the Jets tomorrow?
Here's the challenge with Hutchinson. He's been on the field. Right. I mean, the dude has basically been starting, and we've seen this with other players. Last year, Alec Pierce ran the most routes, played the most snaps of any wideouts, and did nothing, right? I mean, these guys, we see it with Van Jefferson consistently. He's always on the field, and you might get 2 or 3 catches. Demarcus Robinson, we see this a lot. The guy I'm kind of leaning to, and this is more a gut shot, and this is a gamble. This is where you've got to either have some cojones or some faith and be willing to be wrong. It's okay. You're going to be wrong sometimes. I think that's the biggest fear, is everybody is so afraid to be wrong. Take your shots, trust yourself. You're going to be wrong. And when you're wrong, you adjust. That's all there is to it. But if you stick to a basic format on roster construction, as far as how many stashes, how many flex, how many receivers, how many running backs, you will be fine in the long run, even when you miss, because you're going to have some hits along the way too. But you're going to have to grin and bear it when you're wrong sometimes. I'm leaning Metcalf.
Okay.
The Texans have refused to let Metcalf go. And if we want to talk about a guy that works in the short area, I feel like Hutchinson was more the backup to Nico, and that's why we saw him on the field so much. But if I'm looking at somebody that can work in the short area, maybe be kind of a PPR guy for Stroud, I'm leaning at Metcalf right now. Obviously, Tank Dell's going to be his boy, and you got to believe the defenses are going to scheme for that. So I like the Hutchinson call. My apprehension is, man, he's been on the field and we're not seeing it. Why are we not seeing it? Metcalf hasn't been on the field. So I'm willing to roll the dice a little bit. And like I said, Fensty, we'd be talking next Wednesday and go, dude, Metcalf did nothing. He didn't see the field. He did nothing. That was a miss. Hutchinson had 7 for 89 yards and a touchdown. Way to go, Fensty. So I don't mind the Hutchinson call. That's just not the avenue I'm chasing. And my logic behind is he's been on the field. We're not seeing it. So I fear it's more substance than production, where I tell you what, why haven't the Texans moved on for Metcalf? People were interested in Metcalf and they didn't move him. Is it getting up to speed because he missed the whole first year? He had the knee injury and then he had the cancer. So, I mean, this guy hasn't had time to develop. And honestly, I see a little more overlap with Diggs and Metcalf than I do, say, Hutchinson and Diggs.
And Metcalf did have 4 targets last week. Just saying that. He's not seeing the field a lot. But you look at Robert Woods, it's right there.
There's another one. That's another one.
And here's what sucks about the whole thing, because this goes back to a conversation we had at the beginning of the year, Dalton Schultz. Schultz is getting those targets, but he's not doing anything with them. You talk about being a waste of space. This guy is not doing anything with the targets, and he's on the field. I'm looking at the snap counts right there, and you're seeing him on the field. Obviously, tight end, I mean, he's your big starter, but 78, 86, 99, 66. I mean, he's taking up targets and he's not doing anything.
And guess who got targets the last couple of weeks? That's not much. It's not been a lot. But Cade Stover, who played with Stroud at Ohio State. And I noticed some as you went through those snap percentages, that most recent game was a lower number than we'd seen before.
It was.
So are we going to see Stover out there more? Or do they feel Stover's a better athlete?
Can I read you some numbers here?
Yeah,
and by the way, why we're in a conversation on the snap counts for the Texan size, you know what? Some of you are like, why are you wasting your time? And just answer my question.
Whoa.
This is important.
I was going to say,
targets.
One thing I look at every single week is snap percentages and snaps. If you want to chase volume, and I will argue, you and I are on the same page here, Fence. We've been this way. And when it comes to fantasy, I will chase volume. So Hutchinson peaks to us because of the snap count, and the routes run, but the targets aren't there. We look at all these things. So when you see target or snap percentages dropping and someone else is going up, that is important info. You want to talk about, Jeff has said this over and over. You play proactively, not reactively. That's playing proactively. If you're not interested in snap percentages, I will argue you're playing the game wrong. So hit me. Let's hear them.
Okay, so here we go. I just want to say this, by the way, before I'm not going to go off on a tangent with what we're talking about. I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding Tillman and Njoku. Yes. Okay. Yes. All right.
Yes.
Yes, you could keep him on your roster. Yes, you could trust him. Yes, you could start him because his quarterback is going to be throwing 1,000 times. This isn't Jared Goff over here. So don't just chase. I mean, people will see all the 2 touchdowns from Tillman, but I'm looking at the last few weeks where we're still getting a ton of targets too. That's what the most impressive thing is. A guy can go 3 targets, 3 receptions on 10 targets 2 weeks in a row. If he's dealing with a backup quarterback, I'm still going to be in on that play because
100%.
if the starter comes back, comes back, then all of a sudden, the game plan doesn't necessarily switch, just the skill of the actual player. So that's why the big lesson to take away is look at things like snap percentage, look at target volume. Don't just
target share.
Don't just focus on what the points are, the box scores. Take that, and you don't have to dig that deep. It's very easy. And when you read our content, it's in there as well. You just got to read the content more than just the bold names and what teams they're on. Read the freaking analysis. Dude, this is me in basketball mode because I'm a big analyst.
You're spot on.
I'm a big analyst. Mark Hogan won his $50K. He didn't use all my picks. He used half of them. He didn't even use my entire core 4 in basketball last night. He used half my picks, and then I saw what he did in his lineup. He took guys that are a little bit more wild cards, but in a 4-game slate, you knew that Nets forward Cameron Johnson, even though he could be a little scoring dependent, you knew he was going to be taking shots. Mark took the chance. He produced in other categories, and he was able to win.
Mark does the same thing on NASCAR. He's helping us with NASCAR now, and he would have told you until last year he never really paid much attention to it, kind of casually watched. But he read the content, and he and I have had this specific discussions about this. He likes when I put some of the odds in there, some of the pricing, because for him, that's a trigger comparing pricing to odds in Vegas. Why is one got him as the 3rd best favorite, yet pricing is way down? Those things matter to him. Well, he goes and reads the article and notices I'm talking about so-and-so being in double duty races, and in the past, how that's played in to being helpful. Maybe it wasn't a name I highlighted, but because I broke down what they were doing, he does that. He reads the content in there and puts his own spin on it based on the information that we're sharing. And I get really frustrated because you hit the nail on the head with the basketball stuff. Jen doesn't do a lot of DFS. She does more betting, for example. She reads all the DFS articles. Why? Because she is adamant there is information in those articles that she can then apply to the betting side that may not have been highlighted on the betting side. And I tell people this all the time in Discord. We pay for a service. Your service you pay for is the content we produce. If you don't have time to consume it, that's a you thing. I can't fix that. Using Discord as a crutch is a fast way to lose. I don't know another way to put it. There is no cheat sheet, and the more that we hammer the same things over and over in things like Discord, the more unlikely they are to hit. That's just the way things are. Just like when everybody's in on a bet, I get nervous. I don't want to be on the bet that everybody's on. That's when things crash and burn, right? That's when you start getting me talking about things being fixed, because I'm sure the people with big money that have the power to fix these things, buying off refs and whatnot, they're betting the other sides. That's where the money is. So I don't understand how people just think you can go in Discord or go read the bold or just go to the core 4s and do these things and expect to win. It's not. The folks like Mark that are hammering and hitting big, they are reading and consuming the content. I know this. They have admitted this to me. Sharkfin was that way. They read the content and they go, you know what? They mentioned this. They didn't put him in bold, but they mentioned this, and this is something interesting. I like this angle. If I put this player in my DFS, that gives me an option to flex or pivot here where I can be a little different. These are things. That's why we try to teach you how in the process. I don't want to fish for you. I want to give you the fishing pole and let you know what fish I like to eat, but it's up to you to catch the fish and cook the dinner. That's your job. I'll get you all the tools, but you got to do the fishing and the cooking.
No, and you're at 1,000% right on that. And by the way, there is a little bit of a correlation because a lot of the players that I put in that core four, I'm thinking are going to outperform their potential. So clearly, I'm thinking that they're going to be going to 3 to 4x, let's say, in one category. So that's why I'm likely going to put that in as a bet, as a potential prop bet. Circling back though to the snap counts, because right now what Rich and I are doing is we're trying to figure out life with the Houston Texans, unless all of a sudden a big name receiver gets traded there for some reason. So, but at this point, when it comes to Dalton Schultz, we're talking about the snap percentage going down a little bit. It went down about 12%. Stover has been on the field the last 3 weeks, 52, 48, 48.
So about
Schultz, 86, 78, 66. Their other tight end, though, and I'm going to butcher his name, Toriano, he has been also picking up some of that percentage, too, in the last 3 weeks. He's gone from 14 to 20 to 34. So they're getting him into the mix as well.
They're using him more as a receiver because he is the faster, more athletic type. Is my guess. I'll have to go back and watch a game and see, but that's my guess. I don't think they're bringing him in to block as an extra body like Darnell Washington. I don't think that's what they're using him for, especially with all the injuries. Now, I'm curious, Fensty, what's Metcalf done? I'm assuming his snaps have gone up the last week.
Metcalf right now is, by the way, coming off the 4-target game that we mentioned before. Metcalf the last 3 weeks, 38, 36, 28.
So it was very small.
Yeah, it was small, but it's efficient. He's being thrown to. I mean, that's, again, we're right now trying to, and this isn't for this week, but this is how the stock market works. And you know all the sayings. You see every Wolf of Wall Street, any of those movies. By the time it's in the Wall Street Journal, you are too late.
Too late.
Everybody knows about it. Like it was by the time you see a player on that cover of the article, it's probably too late, or that player for DFS is going to be very highly owned. This is for stashing purposes. This is how to rotate your bench so that you go on the waiver wire and you see who you could pick up. Because part of my pickups, I didn't need to spend big, but part of my pickups, even losing Diggs, was just trying to take a shot on one of these Texans receivers. And if it doesn't work out after a few weeks, at least I had the rotation to keep my mind open for future stashes.
Can I give you an example? I'm in the Kings Classic. It's 14-teamer. So, and it's deep. It's full IDP. So there's not a lot on the waiver wire ever. Okay. I go to do waivers last week, and I've got 15 leagues, so I lose track of who I got where, right? So I go to do waivers last week, and I'm out of money. So I have to play a week to 2 weeks ahead of everybody. I have to grab people for free. I can't outbid anybody. I can't wait to be reactionary. It's not an option for me. So I go and look, and guess who's already on my roster? Cedric Tillman and Sterling Shepard. Now, they were the hot pickups last week, especially in deep leagues. I already had them. They were already sitting on the roster. Why? Because I did exactly what you're talking about. I had noticed both of their snap shares had started inching up. Obviously, the Cooper trade changed things a little bit. Now, with the injuries, it changes a little thing. Now, does Shepard turn into anything? Maybe not. He's already hurt. He's been hurt all the time. But, we had a whole discussion. Shepard McMillan, that was a fair comparison and question, right? Tillman has obviously been added everywhere at this point. I mean, over 3 weeks, he's gone from 0.8% ownership to 50% ownership or something like that. My point being is, if you play proactively and you plan ahead, you can reap the benefits. So in that league, guess who I grabbed for free today? Because, again, I have no money, so I let waivers run. I grabbed Metcalf. He may not amount to anything. He may be absolutely nothing. But in a league with 14 teams and you've got to start 5, 6 flex players or whatever it is, getting 4 targets for 4 catches for 50 yards is usable. Like, I'm using players and winning that are scoring me 2 to 3 points. So if I can get almost 10 points from a guy, this is highly usable. You've got to learn to play ahead. At the same time, I want to caution everybody, don't play musical chairs with your roster. Sometimes the best move is no move.
Right. I agree. Looking on the waiver wire is different than acting all the time. Mm-hmm. But the problem is some people fall asleep. They don't make any pickups for weeks and weeks. They're sitting there, few games over 500. You're sitting pretty. You're loving life. And then that week comes, the week where you suffer 2 major injuries, where you got one done for the year, one going on the IR for the next few weeks. Now what do? What the hell are you going to do? That's why, and this is something I had to learn as well, and that's keeping that open rotation so we can chase that volume, picking up players that could be good for next week or the week after. Sunday morning pickups are crucial. By that point, everybody is thinking, who am I starting? There's opportunity on that waiver wire. And I've been able to take advantage of that, and you can too, and especially those out there who are in 10-team leagues. And Rich, I just got to say, man, I know that you're not feeling well, and I kind of knew that, like we determined, we're not doctors, but I kind of knew that because in your article, Bryce Young as a streamer.
I couldn't believe it.
Are you okay? Are you hallucinating?
I may be. I even put in the write-up. I can't believe I'm putting it. I know. Here's the thing. I can't deny reality, okay? I try to watch all the games. I have multiple TVs. I have them up. I don't have the time and ability to watch like Jeff does, where he goes back and literally watches a game at a time and all that. But I do take notes. I haven't noted there in Discord lately. I have in another section. I have game day notes. I can't deny that Bryce Young didn't look anywhere near as crappy. Like, I don't know another way to put it, okay? Did he look good? No. I'm not suggesting that. Did he look lost and completely out of his mind? He didn't. And when you go look at the fantasy scores, holy crap, he hit that 15-point threshold or right around there. And we're having a hard time getting there. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Mahomes has been around it, but has only hit 15 or more like twice this year.
Can I interrupt you for a second? For context, we would beg for Anthony Richardson to get 15
points. 100%. 100%. You know, and people drafted him thinking 25. Do you know how many points or how many games from Richardson we can't even get 7 or 10? It's right. Bad. It's bad. So you're spot on, Fensty, and that is a great point, though. So that's what I'm saying. When you go to streaming purposes, look, had I known if Flacco was for sure going to start, he probably would have been listed in the article, and I'm all for using Flacco. He's an easy one to turn to. Some of the higher ownership guys, Justin Herbert, yes, please use these guys, Matt Stafford, over Bryce Young. But if you are just trying to fill the spot, you are struggling, this is as good of a matchup that you're going to get for Bryce Young. And conversely, it's the best Saints defensive matchup the Saints are going to get too, right? Isn't it the Saints?
Yes.
Panthers this week. Again, I'm struggling here. I'm not quite hallucinating, but I'm almost there. So it's kind of a get right spot for both of them. He showed improvement. Do I have a lot of faith? No. But here again, sometimes we have to do things. I mean, I'll never forget a few years ago grabbing Jameis Winston, plugging my nose, and putting him in my starting lineups. And going, I'm going to take the interceptions with the touchdowns.
This was when he was on the Saints, right?
Saints. No, This was when he was on the Bucs, when he went 50 and 30.
It's been the whole career.
Yes. Yeah. What was it? 50 and 30 he went, or 30 and 30, whatever it was with the interceptions and TDs. He just kept pushing the ball down the field. And I was like, this is ugly. This is gross. But I can't deny the fact I'm getting points, and I need the points. We say never chase the points. Look, at quarterback, we know the snap share. They're playing 100% if you're getting a starting quarterback. So at some point, we have to be honest about where the points are coming from and how. Don't chase the points, chase the volume. Quarterback, it's a little different. We got to understand where the points come from. You take those losses on sacks, you take those losses on interceptions, but if there's enough higher enough completion percentage, high enough yardage, high enough touchdowns, whatever, you do it. Fensty, there's not a lot of options out there at quarterback. Nobody wants to use Bryce. And honestly, that's those are the times when these guys hit for 20 points.
Yes.
Nobody wants to use them. You pivot from the group, you're desperate, and you say your prayer and hope for the best. That's Bryce Young this week.
You know what's interesting, because with what we're talking about with chasing the volume, I mean, we should be putting that kind of emphasis and maybe spending some budget if needed on Jameis Winston. The problem is, though, Rich, the Browns got a bye in week 10, and that's a pivotal time. And the matchups that Jameis Winston has down the stretch.
Oh, it gets ugly.
Oh, my God. But again, they go down big. Jameis gonna be chucking. He's coming,
Well,
and that's what we're paying for. So it's almost like a catch-22 in a way. It's almost weird because when investing part of your budget into a quarterback that, he's had like one real, big moment, big start at this point this year, but he's proven that he can throw for a lot of yards. Even though he has this kind of matchup set coming up from week 11 through probably at least week 14, the end of our fantasy regular season. If they're down big, he's just going to continue throwing.
Well, in all fairness, you have to throw against the Steelers. I know the defense is, I've talked about the defense being all that, and it is, but you have to throw against the Steelers. That's what you have to do. The Bengals defense doesn't scare me at all. The biggest problem for the Browns is the offensive line, but Winston's not afraid to get the ball out quick. And if he takes a pick, he takes a pick. He does not care.
What
That's
about
partly
the
what I
Broncos
like
too? I mean, because after by the Saints, the Steelers, the Broncos, and then the Steelers again.
Yeah, I would say I know they had the Steelers twice. They've got the Ravens again, I believe. They've got the Bengals again, I believe, and the Broncos. And here again, the Broncos are tough. It's going to be tough to run or pass on them. It really is. But I tell you what, he used all the receivers. And the one receiver I don't really care for right now in the Browns is Jerry Jeudy. He looks lost. I think he's run the wrong routes multiple times. He's had some horrible drops. Elijah Moore led the team in targets. Elijah Moore, you want to talk about a volume guy and snap percentage that keeps you confused. Elijah Moore's been on the field all year. He hadn't done anything. Jameis Winston gets in under center, and oh my God, the guy's peppered with targets. He had like 12 targets this week, or 14. He and Njoku just got peppered the last 2 weeks. So
Jeudy still had 8, though.
Yes, he did still have 8. He didn't do anything. You're talking about Jeudy?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. He had like 3 drops, and 2 of them I'm almost positive were balls intended to go to Moore or Tillman that were behind him, and the 2 receivers were on the same side of the field. And based on where the quarterback threw it, I'm pretty confident it was Jeudy that was in the wrong spot. So why the Browns gave him a contract without seeing him on the field after not doing anything, I don't know. The Browns front office is dumb. They should hire me, but that's beside the point. That's the one guy. Give me Njoku, give me Moore, give me Tillman and Jameis, and we'll see what happens. And honestly, this is going to be helpful for Chubb because that offensive line is still a problem, but they've looked so much better. And I think it's confidence in Winston. And I think Winston is a leader. You can say what you want about eating the W's and all that. He gets people fired up and gets people to want to play for him. They know if they're down the field, he's going to take a shot and let them make a play. And the line knows we don't have to hold our blocks for 15 minutes. So, and honestly, the Browns defense even looked better.
What do you think?
Whoa.
2 guys we were just talking about here. You just brought up Elijah Moore on the 12-target game. You got to think that McMillan, he's going to get his act together and be the prioritized, unless Cade Otton continues to be.
Cade Otton's going to continue to be.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Buccaneers know what they want to do. I do think if Shepard doesn't hurt his hammy again, he was the guy that was going to be on the field the most because he left the field and still played about the same amount of snaps as everybody else, and he left for a chunk of the game.
Jeff was saying that. I remember as soon as we got the news there regarding the receivers, then immediately Jeff was like locked in on Shepard.
He was, and I didn't know that at the time when I was – my angle on him was if I had to look at all the receivers on that team that replaces Godwin or what Godwin can do, to me it's Shepard. He can do the route running and the type of stuff that Godwin does. I don't know that that's really McMillan's mold. I feel like McMillan is a better fit for what they used Mike Evans for. And quite frankly, if you looked at the balls that McMillan was thrown, they were the jump balls. They were the Mike Evans types of balls that were thrown. This is strictly a gut shot here, Hal. I'm on Moore over McMillan, and it is seriously nothing but a gut shot. If you wanted me to place a bet on it, I wouldn't. Like, that's where my confidence is. I just feel like there's a reason we saw so much volume for Moore, and I'm not shocked. We saw the same thing last year with Flacco. Cooper and Moore were the ones that really, and Njoku were the ones that really benefited once the Browns started airing it out more. And I'm really disappointed what I've seen from Jeudy. Look, maybe he gets his head right over the week. Maybe the Browns decide to pull more back. I don't know, but that would be my lean. I was disappointed with what I saw McMillan, especially after Shepard went down. Why did we not see McMillan out there more?
Let's talk about a few more streamers here. I mean, it's a team that I feel like we don't talk about this team a lot. The Chargers. The Chargers are just kind of there.
Nobody wants to play them.
Like, that's the thing. But no one wants to play them or play them in their lineup.
Yep, you're right. You're spot on.
So at this point, someone that you wrote in your article on fantasyguru.com when it comes to streaming is someone who I actually invested a lot in and got a few shares of, thinking he was going to be that top freaking option, not only a deeper threat, but also going to get hit a lot by Justin Herbert, who I thought if he took a few shots, he'd still be able to play because we've seen it before. But man, Josh Palmer, dude, at this point, it's now when it comes to the Chargers, you got Quentin Johnson, who's been banged up. I mean, you got Big Lad over there, but also Josh Palmer, you wrote up. What are your expectations of this guy? Because, like I said, the Chargers offense, it's just boring, it seems like.
It's gotten better. Go look at the last 2 weeks and pass attempts, pass yards, attempted rushes, all of those things. And Tyler pointed this out on our coaching stream 2 weeks ago, not this past Tuesday, but a week ago. They're throwing a lot more. They've decided to open up this offense and turn to Justin Herbert more. I'm not shocked. We saw this a little bit with Kaepernick back when Harbaugh was with the 49ers. They want to have a defense. They want to control the ball. I think they are incrementally adding things to the offense. And they're seeing Dobbins wear down, and Vidal's not up to speed yet. And I don't think they really want to throw him to the wolves. And so we're seeing Herbert get leaned on more. If you go look at Palmer's info, especially since he came back from the game he missed with injury, the snaps have been pretty consistent. The target volume is starting to get consistent. It's not great, but Fensty, 5 to 8 targets a week. I mean, that's what we're looking at for the last month, 60 to 70 yards. And I happen to think Ladd and Palmer complement each other really well. Palmer excelled last year in more of the Mike Williams role than the Keenan Allen role. Now, it's a different staff, so I don't want to get people confused with that, but Ladd McConkey still kind of does with the things that Keenan Allen did. Short area of the field, good smooth routes, run after the catch, some of those things. Palmer is not as much of that guy. I think they complement each other very well. And so as Ladd's gotten more play and more volume, that is freeing up space for Palmer to work and Herbert to just hit him as needed. And we're seeing that with the 5 to 8 targets. We're seeing that with the 60, 70 yards. It's not going to light the world on fire, but can Palmer get you 10 points in a PPR league? I think so.
I'm interested to see if when Johnston's fully healthy, if all of a sudden we see less of Palmer. That's what I'm interested in seeing. But
I wonder, though, if Johnston and Ladd are more the complement to each other. You know what I mean? Or yeah. I wonder if we see Johnston take a back seat to Ladd, because Ladd catches with his hands, man. There's more they can do. I know that sounds simplistic and mean, but there's more you can do with the receiver that catches with their hands than a guy that's a body catcher.
You know who else catches with his hands? Noah Brown.
Yes, he does.
I did. Dude, I'm in the DC area, man. It's just great to see like people like going crazy about the Commanders again. It had been like 12 years or so, it seemed like, since like early Robert Griffin III, man. And this franchise had real crap owner and now turned a new leaf. Jaden Daniels is fun as hell to watch. He's playing.
Dan Quinn. Yeah. Dan Quinn's got him playing well. And let this be a lesson to everybody out there. It ain't over till it's over. Ask the Bears secondary as homeboy's over there taunting the crowd instead of blocking out Noah Brown. And all he had to do was block out Noah Brown, put a body on Noah Brown. That's all he had to do, and swipe at the ball as it came over. That's all he had to do. Instead, he was too busy jumping up and down, celebrating like he's all Billy Badass out there, and instead he looks like a chump. He is a chump and not a champ. That's what you get for being stupid.
Dude, you see something like that, and then I just start watching like the greatest Hail Marys of all time. Like the
Flutie, baby.
The Bears have won. The band is out on the field. Yes, the Bears have won. It's awesome. It's great right there. I want to just take this trade before we take the trade. One of my favorite things to ask you every week. Top defenses to stream.
Sure.
What are you thinking?
I'm going to keep pushing this. The Giants are still a top 10 defense, and they're not owned anywhere. I don't know what to tell people. I get the Commanders are a tougher matchup, but these division games get goofy. I love playing defenses in division games. That's where you get these weird special teams touchdowns. You get the weird pick sixes. You get the fumble recoveries. Look, nobody is respecting the Giants, and the Giants front seven, ask any quarterback that's played against them. They are for real. They are tough. No, literally 5% ownership. Crazy. Tennessee Titans against Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots. It's Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots. When Jacoby was there, they were turning over the ball. They weren't moving the ball. It's not like they're going to set the world on fire, but they'll give you something. And the Rams is kind of an oddball one. If you look at the Rams in Seattle, it's another division game. Seattle's defense has scored more points, but if you look at what the Rams have done the last 3 weeks, they've been trending up. And I don't think people have noticed that. And I go back to like the Browns. The Browns defense looks so much better this weekend. It's the same defense. It's the same play calling. What was different? The offense wasn't anemic. The defense got to rest. The offense got to move the ball. And whether people want to believe it or not, it's a psychological thing. When you play defense and you're constantly running back on the field because of turnovers and 3 and outs, you get frustrated. You get tired. You get mentally worn out. The Rams aren't doing that. The Rams are playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're playing fast. They're playing well. It's a division game. Geno has not looked sharp lately. It's a gamble. It's a gut shot, but I like the Rams.
Want to take Chris's trade very quickly because this is one of those, this is a big boy trade right here that he was thinking. It's like, hear me out, y'all. Would you guys trade Higgins and Monty for Breece Hall? Now, here's who he has. He has DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, Khalil Shakir at this point. And then he also has Pollard, Chaseberg, CMC, who knows, Javonte as other running backs. Rich, I'll tell you where I'm at with this when looking at it, because another thing Chris says is that the Jets have a good schedule here against maybe, somewhat weaker run defenses here for the rest of the way here. But I'll say this, for me, I kind of want to keep Montgomery and Higgins here. I just having that depth, and especially, you got a little bit banged up. What's to say? And I know it's the NFL. You can't really predict injuries here, but with Shakir, with full strength here, Shakir should still continue to get fed, but Cooper is a bit of a threat there, and it's going to impact him at times. DK, Kupp, I'd rather have the security and having another receiver in Higgins. It sucks that he had that late add to the injury list and everything like that and to the injury report and then ultimately ruled out. But at the same time, I'm standing pat with this, even if Breece has a good schedule.
It's an overpay for me, so I can't do it.
Okay.
I get you're upgrading Monty there, but it's too much of an overpay for me. If this is at the trade deadline, Fensty, maybe you could get around the depth concerns that you have. And I think those are valid concerns, especially with all the injuries we have. But for me, that's potentially 2 starters, and Higgins was eating when he was healthy. Yeah. He was getting more volume than Chase was, right? So I can't do it. Now, if you told me it was Hall and, say, Cedric Tillman or trying to think of one of these other guys that maybe people aren't as sold on that has some upside ability, whether it's Moore, whether it's McMillan, maybe it's Mike Evans because he's injured and they're worried about it. If I'm getting something back in addition to Hall like that, I'm fine with it. But I'm not going to overpay just to get the one guy. I feel like that is a bad way to play fantasy and a bad way to trade. People get enamored with, I really want this guy. And I don't think they see the big picture when they chase that guy.
Right. And it's like, oh, I have CMC. What the hell can we expect from this guy? You really don't know at this point.
We don't know.
You don't know.
He could have 2 good weeks and he could have 2 good weeks and be shut down the rest of the year. Right. He could be a monster the rest of the year. He may not come back at all. Like, we literally are that gamut of outcomes is across the board, and there is no certainty on it. I could put a percentage on all of them above 10%. So why play these guessing games? And I hate to caution people on Hall. Braylon Allen isn't going away.
He's not. He's not going away. He's not. And Rich Miletto, hopefully never going away from Wednesday shows with me here on Fantasy Sports Daily at Fantasy Bosco on X. And Rich, what else is coming up for you on the site for the next few days?
We got NASCAR dropping, just a couple more weeks of that. I did have a couple of bold drivers that won this week. So even though I'm neck deep in football, I've still got some NASCAR insight that pays. Willie Byron, he's still in the hunt there, Fensty. It's a little tougher, but he's in the hunt, buddy. So we got that. We got start sit. I'm trying to add some more notes to each of the players' lines. Like I said, I've been sick and been struggling. As NASCAR finishes up, I'll have a lot more time to be able to spend on start sit. I would actually, as much as I'm spending the 4 to 6 hours doing it, I actually want to spend more time on it. People really like it, but that'll be coming out. And trying to get in Discord as I can. It's been a bit of a struggle. So like I said, I know you tell me not to apologize for it, but I know people are in there and wanting answers. But I got to tell y'all, the people that are winning, they read, even if you only have 4 or 5 articles all week that you read while you're on the crapper, then they're reading it and coming up with their own conclusions. They are winning. I don't know what else to tell people.
He is Rich Miletto. I'm Justin Fensterman. A little bit later on fantasyguru.com, I'll have the Wednesday NFL practice reports. Monster NBA slate that's split between FanDuel and DraftKings. I'll have a write-up and make sure not only will I have the write-up for DFS, but we're also going to be building in Discord starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll be able to post some bets as well on the betting side. And then tonight, live in the DFS NBA Discord, watch along Wednesday. Rich might even show up here if he can remember the right Discord channel to come for watching.
Yeah, I popped in there and I'm like, boy, it's dead in here. What am I doing?
Yes,
come to find out I was in the wrong channel.
The DFS NBA Discord channel, Rich. But that's okay, man. But you know what? You could come along with everybody else. I'll just be watching the games. I'll be giving the reactions. I'll also be on tilt regarding our bets too and talking about what we're seeing from these rotations. The sample size isn't there, but we're riding the wave, learning the trends, and we're staying one step ahead of the games. That's why we watch the games together in order to win together. At Fensty Sports on X and Instagram, Ray Flowers will be back same time, same channel, right here on the Elite Plus Network as part of fantasyguru.com. Have a great rest of the week, and let's win at the place where winners win, fantasyguru.com.